Imagine feeling absolutely nothing. No joy, no pain, no love, no fear. What if you believed you were a monster simply because you couldn't feel a single emotion? Today, I'm taking you into a story so dark, so twisted, you might find yourself questioning what it truly means to be human. Welcome back to Movie Recaps Hub podcast. I'm Doolin. If you love chilling tales and deep dives into characters who walk on the edge, you're in the right place. Before we get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a recap. All right, let's jump into the haunting journey of James and Alyssa. So our story begins with James, a 17-year-old boy convinced he's a psychopath. He believes this because, from as early as he can remember, he hasn't felt anything. No laughter, no tears, no excitement. He hated jokes as a kid, especially his father Phil's never-ending dad jokes. Picture little James sitting there, forcing a smile while secretly imagining punching his dad to finally shut him up. At just 9 years old, James decided to test whether feeling pain could stir something inside him. He shoved his hand into a deep fryer just to see if he could feel anything. Spoiler alert, it did hurt, but inside, he still felt absolutely nothing. Fast forward to age 15. James's curiosity turns murderous. He takes his neighbor's cat into the woods and kills it, thinking, maybe this will awaken something, any emotion inside me. He moves on to more animals, always hoping that the suffering he causes will finally trigger a reaction. But it never does. By the time he's 17, James has concluded, only a human life might crack my shell. One day at school, James is sitting alone, lost in his hollow world, when Alyssa approaches. She's a girl who seems just as broken as he is. As they talk, we learn about Alyssa's life. Her mother, Gwen, remarried a man named Tony, whose behavior makes Alyssa deeply uncomfortable. Sticks caring for her 2 young half-siblings, which frustrates her to no end. She hasn't seen her biological father, Leslie, since she was 8, but he still sends birthday cards and checks in on her now and then. That's the only bit of warmth she feels. At school, Alyssa is just as isolated as James. One lunchtime, a girl sitting across from her texts instead of talking, and that small act of rudeness sends Alyssa into a rage. She smashes her phone and storms off. Now, Alyssa sees James sitting by himself and thinks, maybe he gets it. So she plops down next to him, starts critiquing his poor skating skills. And just like that, James's mind thinks, she could be my perfect target. After class, Alyssa literally finds James still sitting in the same spot. She jokingly assumes he's been waiting for her. James decides to play along. When Alyssa impulsively kisses him, he stands there, emotionless, as if nothing happened. She mentions her broken phone. He says he doesn't have one either. Then, in an eerily flat tone, he asks, "Would you go on a date with me?" And Alyssa, intrigued and maybe thinking she's found someone who understands her pain, says yes. They go to a small local restaurant. Here's where things get really weird. The waitress arrives to take their order, and Alyssa rudely demands a fucking spoon. The waitress is understandably offended and says, "We don't tolerate that language here." Alyssa mutters an apology, but then sarcastically asks for a big banana fuck. At that point, the waitress calls security, and Alyssa storms out, swearing under her breath. Meanwhile, James watches, emotionless, but inside, he's thinking, okay, this girl's messed up. Later that evening, Alyssa asks if she can come over to James' house. He's surprised, yet sees a golden opportunity to carry out his plan. When Alyssa arrives, 1. She comments on the strange number of windows in his house. 2. She spots a framed photo on the wall and asks about it. James tells her it's a picture of his mother, who's currently in Japan. 3. Then, Alyssa touches James inappropriately, revealing just how consumed she is by dark, sexual thoughts. At the same time, she burns a piece of toast in the kitchen, completely oblivious to her surroundings. James stands quietly, contemplating how and when he will kill her. Just then, Phil, James's dad, walks in. He's relieved when he sees a girl and jokes, "I thought James might be gay, but that's a girl, so good." Alyssa snaps back, "I don't think James is straight either. Maybe he's asexual." Phil laughs it off, but Alyssa's bluntness and James's blank stare create an uneasy atmosphere. Later, on the rooftop, Alyssa bluntly asks if James has ever slept with a girl. In true James fashion, he lies, claims he's been with many girls. Alyssa waves it off and says, "Cool, I'll be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. We'll see what you've got." And with that, she heads home. Next day, 11 a.m. James is at home with a knife hidden in his pocket, ready to kill Alyssa the moment she walks through the door. Clock ticks to 11. No Alyssa. That's because that morning, Alyssa's mother, Gwen, ropes her into helping with a family function. She has to serve sweets, deal with guests, and all that. Midway through, stepfather Tony offers Alyssa a drink. She snaps at him, and he crosses the line, touching her inappropriately. Gwen sees it, but does nothing. That night, Alyssa's had enough. She grabs Leslie's jacket, storms out, and runs straight to James's house. Back at James's place, Alyssa, furious, rips off her shirt and collapses on the couch. James quietly slips the knife into his pocket. Then she asks, out of nowhere, "Want to leave this town and go somewhere far away with me?" James thinks, patience is key if I want to kill her. He agrees. They head outside to steal Phil's car. As James starts the engine, Phil shows up, shocked. Without hesitation, James punches Phil in the face, knocks him down, and drives off. Alyssa is right there, amazed. On the road, they have a brief conversation. Alyssa asks if James is scared. He hesitates, admits maybe a little. She brags she isn't scared at all. James thinks she really should be. First stop, a gaming arena. Alyssa dives into the games with pure enthusiasm. She's laughing, screaming, completely alive. James sits there, stone-faced. At one point, Alyssa whispers, "Put your tongue in my ear." James, calm as ever, does it. The gaming arena manager spots them, disturbed by their PDA, and kicks them out. Hungry, they head to a fancy restaurant. They eat, but when the check comes, Alyssa asks, "You got money?" James admits he forgot. Alyssa shrugs. Her money was spent at the gaming arena, so they leave without paying. By some miracle, the staff never notices. As they're driving, Alyssa gets mischievous, tries to strip James while he's behind the wheel. Distracted, James loses control, and their car slams into a tree. The car bursts into flames. They stumble out, James barely concerned, thinking about how that was his dad's prized possession. Now, stranded and shirtless, they hitchhike. Finally, an older man in a van stops. He offers them a ride south, says he's heading to buy a battle dog. In the van, he jokes, "What were you kids doing in the woods?" James says, "Nothing inappropriate." The man laughs and says he's not a cop. He mentions he spent 5 years in the army. He offers to call James's mom to tell her where they are. James says his mother is dead. Alyssa is shocked to hear this. They stop at a restaurant. Alyssa confronts James about lying. He had told her his mom was in Germany. He says, "Long story." The man brings coffee and shows photos of his wife and kids. Alyssa cruelly mocks his children, calling them potato faces. James tries to rein her in, but she storms out. Meanwhile, in the men's bathroom, the man begins inappropriately touching James while he's urinating. James doesn't resist, he just stands there. Suddenly, Alyssa enters and screams, "Are you
gay?"
James tells her, "No, the man forced himself on me." Alyssa confronts the man, slams her hand on the sink, and demands his wallet, threatening to call the police and shame him in front of his family. Humiliated, the man hands over a large wad of cash. James and Alyssa make a beeline for a nearby hotel. Inside, Alyssa retreats to the bathroom crying. James contemplates killing her, but hearing her sobs makes him hesitate. Alyssa calls home from the hotel phone. Tony picks up. She asks for Gwen. Tony laughs. "Your mom couldn't care less." True to form, Gwen remains silent. Shattered, Alyssa returns and clings to James, begging for a hug. James hugs her, and in that moment, you can see something flicker in his eyes, a glimmer of emotion. Meanwhile, Phil, concerned sick, calls the police to report James missing and possibly in danger. The investigation is officially underway. The next morning, no car, no money, just 2 teens on foot. Alyssa says she wants to find her real father, Leslie. James agrees, but the house is far away. They need a train, so they decide to rest for a day or two in the wilderness. No real plan. As they walk, Alyssa spots an abandoned house. Broken windows, overgrown yard. Nobody's lived there in ages. She breaks the glass on the front gate and sneaks inside. James protests. This might get us in more trouble, but Alyssa shrugs him off. Inside the house, they find a dusty picture of the owner, and Alyssa sticks her gum on it, like she's marking her territory. They sit by a dried-up pool and eat some snacks. Alyssa plays music on her phone and starts dancing. James hesitates, but Alyssa pulls him into it, and for a moment, he dances too. When Alyssa tries to get intimate, James warns her, "The owner's picture is right there. He's watching us." Alyssa gets mad, calls him boring, and storms out. Outside, Alyssa meets a man named Tawir, though he says his real name is Christopher. He tells her he prefers Tawir because he's, well, weird. Alyssa finds this intriguing and impulsively kisses him. Meanwhile, James's moment of heartbreak. Alone, James holds a bouquet of wilted flowers. When Alyssa returns with Tawir, she says, "I'm going upstairs with Tawir," and flies off. James stands there stunned. For the first time, he feels heartbreak. A surge of emotions, pain, jealousy, confusion hits him. He's grateful to Alyssa in a twisted way, because her betrayal finally cracked his numb shell. Inside the abandoned house, James rummages through drawers and finds a camera and photos. He flips through them, only to discover the owner, Professor Clive, was a serial killer. Pictures of rape, murder, brutality. James' face goes pale. He realizes Clive is a monster. Meanwhile, upstairs, Alyssa is about to get intimate with Tawir, but she suddenly thinks of James. She stops, sends Tawir away, who calls her a whore and storms out. James goes upstairs, but Alyssa refuses to let him in. James hides, waiting for Alyssa to fall asleep so he can kill her. But when she finally drifts off, peaceful and vulnerable, he softens. He lies down next to her and gently holds her hand. He can't bring himself to do it. Suddenly, Professor Clive returns home. He's furious to see his window shattered and realizes there's an intruder. He grabs a sharp iron rod and climbs the stairs. He flips on the light and sees Alyssa asleep in his bed. Lust overcomes him. He locks the door and begins to harass her. James, hidden under the bed, hears the noise. Fear missiles through him, but he also knows he has to act. He leaps out and plunges a knife into Clive's neck. Clive drops dead instantly. Alyssa wakes to see James drenched in blood. Shock and horror take hold. Alyssa is trembling, worried the police won't believe their story. James insists Clive was a serial killer who was about to assault her. He shows Alyssa the photos and videos as proof. They scramble to clean up, wiping fingerprints, removing evidence. James sits next to Clive's corpse, stunned that murdering someone didn't bring the rush he expected. Instead, he feels hollow. Alyssa, still shaky, asks, "Why did you have to kill him?" James says, "He was a monster, and I saved you." Before they leave, Alyssa changes, burns her blood-stained clothes, and insists they go find Leslie, her father. James points out her father's jacket is stained with blood. She refuses to burn it, too sentimental to destroy the only connection to her real dad. They make their way to the railway station. Alyssa, anxious, dyes her hair blonde and cuts James's hair to avoid recognition. They buy new clothes, still on the run. Clive's mother, who had covered up her son's crimes, returns home and screams upon discovering his body. She calls the police. Investigators Unimis and Terry arrive. They find Ter's wallet under the bed and bring him in for questioning. Tearful and confused, Ter reveals Alyssa's name and describes her brown leather jacket, plus mentions James. The police now have serious leads. Meanwhile, at the station, Alyssa and James, waiting for the train, head to a nearby restaurant because Alyssa is hungry. She can't stop glancing at James, haunted by the image of him killing Clive. James, sensing her unease, says the knife was a birthday gift from his father, still lying. Alyssa asks, "Why would you carry a knife around?" He reaches for her hand, but she pulls away, saying she doesn't want him touching her. Alyssa excuses herself to the bathroom, but instead of using it, she climbs out a window and vanishes, leaving James alone. James sits alone in the restaurant, waiting. Hours pass. He finally realizes Alyssa isn't coming back. For the first time, real emotion washes over him. Panic, sadness, longing. He stumbles outside, desperate to feel physical pain. Maybe it'll solidify these feelings. He approaches a group of street thugs and offers them money to beat him up. At first they refuse, but when he ups the offer, they agree. Beaten and bruised, James feels a blend of physical pain and emotional clarity. He's not as empty as he thought. In a moment of remorse, James calls the police. He wants to confess, share what he knows about Clive's murder. But first, the story cuts to a flashback, 11 years earlier. We see a young James, maybe 6 or 7, telling his mother he wants to feed ducks at a nearby pond. She seems withdrawn, distant, but doesn't argue. They drive to the pond in silence. Before stepping out, his mother hugs him tightly, whispering, "I love you very much." James toddles out to feed the ducks. Unaware, he glances back and sees her accelerate the car, driving deliberately into the pond. James screams as his mother drowns right in front of him. That moment, he thinks, scarred him, shutting off his emotions forever. So he believed. Back in the present, James sits in a police station, torn about confessing. An officer questions him about the murder. James insists his mother's death was murder, not suicide. The officer, confused, says, "No, that was self-harm." James acts as though he's mentally unstable, rambling. Frustrated, the officer dismisses him and lets him go. Phil's interview. Terry and Eunice visit Phil, James's father, to learn more about James's background. They discover how his mother's suicide impacted him. Phil insists James couldn't be a murderer. Tony and Gwen. They then go to Tony, Alyssa's stepfather, who distances himself. "She's not my daughter." When they ask Gwen for a recent photo of Alyssa, Gwen can't produce one. Eunice senses Gwen's mental fragility and worries she needs help. Meanwhile, Alyssa is alone. No money, no plan. She gets her first period, but realizes she has no money for supplies. Desperate, she quietly steals undergarments from a store. The guard catches her. As he's about to search her and call the police, a parent nearby loses sight of their child. The guard rushes off to help, and Alyssa escapes. Outside, Alyssa finds the missing child playing nearby. Without missing a beat, she guides the child back to the parent. In that moment, just a moment, she feels something pure, something right, but guilt returns. She heads back to the restaurant where James was waiting. There, she finds him battered and bruised from the beating by thugs. Overcome with remorse, she apologizes. James, in turn, admits his guilt for killing Clive. They forgive each other. Their bond rekindles, maybe stronger than before. James and Alyssa steal a car again and drive toward Leslie's old house, hoping to find him. Only one cassette tape is in the car. They blast it, enjoy the music until Alyssa gets sick of it and tosses it out the window. Because we did the right thing killing Clive. The police should give us medals, she jokes. Eventually, the stolen car runs out of gas. They pull up to a gas station. James keeps the engine running while Alyssa pretends to fill the tank. The owner notices, signals her son to call the police, though the son doesn't get the hint. The owner brings Alyssa inside to pay. She has no money, so she says she needs the bathroom. The owner realizes her ploy and tells her son to call the police. James bursts in, tucks his hand into his jacket like a gun, and demands the owner free Alyssa. He locks the owner in a back room. Amazingly, the son doesn't intervene. He's too fed up working. He even grabs some snacks for himself. James and Alyssa escape in the car, leaving the son behind, bewildered. Back to the investigators. At Clive's house, Clive's mother, feeling guilty, brings Eunice the chilling evidence of her son's crimes. Eunice rushes it to Terry. Terry breathes a sigh of relief. Clive was a monster, but James and Alyssa didn't start all this. James and Alyssa finally reach Leslie's old house, only to discover he's moved. A neighbor tells them Leslie's new address. With the stolen car out of gas, they walk in the dark until they find a secluded cabin, Leslie's new home. Leslie, now an alcoholic and drug user, is overjoyed to see Alyssa. He hugs her, though he looks worn out. Alyssa introduces James as her boyfriend and asks if they can stay a few days. Leslie hesitates, but agrees. The next morning, Leslie invites James to play a knife-throwing game. Leslie misses, but James nails the bullseye on his first try. Leslie is impressed. Leslie asks if Alyssa talks about him. James nods. Leslie beams. Investigators Terry and Eunice locate Leslie's old house. They speak to the woman living there. She denies knowing anything about Leslie. Terry leaves in frustration, but Eunice slips the woman her card, saying, "If you hear anything, let me know. I want to protect those kids." Back at the cabin, Leslie's other child emerges, Alyssa's half-brother. He asks Leslie for new school supplies, accusing him of hiding while the police search. Alyssa is floored. "You're his child?" she asks the kid. The child nods. Alyssa's heart breaks. Leslie storms out in anger, and in his panic, hits a stray dog with his car. The dog's suffering forces James and Alyssa to put it down on the beach, one of the harshest moments they've faced. That night, in Leslie's cabin, Leslie shoots up drugs. On TV, he sees a reward poster for information leading to James and Alyssa's capture. Greed flashes in his eyes. The next morning, James and Alyssa bury the dog's body on the beach. As they sit by the waves, they start getting intimate, but Alyssa, haunted by Clive's murder, pulls back. "Not tonight," she whispers. James nods, understanding. Alyssa tells James she wants to take Leslie's boat and sail as far away as possible. James agrees. They head to Leslie's cabin to grab the keys. Eunice, having followed a tip from Leslie's neighbor, quietly approaches the cabin. On her phone, Terry messages, "Eunice, you're on your own out there. That's a mistake." Eunice doesn't respond. Her focus is on protecting the kids. Inside Leslie's cabin, Leslie agrees to make tea. As he pretends to boil water, he secretly calls the police, hiding his phone. Alyssa confesses, tears streaming. "Leslie, we killed that man because he tried to assault me." James sees Leslie's betrayal. He's calling the cops. James grabs a gun Leslie left on the table and finds Leslie's hidden phone. Alyssa, enraged, pulls a knife and stabs Leslie in the thigh. Just then, Eunice bursts through the door. She sees James holding a gun and Alyssa holding a knife. Leslie bleeding on the floor. Outside, sirens wail. Terry and a SWAT team surround the cabin. Eunice rushes in. "Stop! I'm here to help, not to arrest you. Your parents are worried sick." She puts a hand on James's shoulder and says softly, "Happy birthday, James. You just turned 18 today." Alyssa, stunned, asks, "Why didn't you tell me?" Eunice shrugs. "I didn't want to tell you at a time like this." Leslie, groaning, yells, "She's trying to get us locked up!" Alyssa shoots back. "You're the one who called the police," Leslie pleads. "I wanted to keep you safe." Then, Alyssa levels a devastating blow. "Those birthday cards, did you actually send them? Or was it Mom?" Leslie stammers, "It was Gwen, your mom." Alyssa's face crumples. Alyssa turns to Eunice, tears in her eyes. "If we surrender, will James and I stay together?" Eunice, fighting back tears, gently says, "I can't promise that." Overwhelmed, Alyssa grabs a nearby pan and smacks Eunice unconscious. She sprints out of the cabin, clutching the boat keys. James bursts through the back door and joins her, both sprinting toward the beach. On the beach, James pulls Alyssa aside. "Tell the police I kidnapped you. Then you'll be safe." Alyssa refuses. "We'll run away together," she cries. James hesitates. Then, in a heartbreaking moment, he hits Alyssa over the head, knocking her out. He sprints toward the water. Police officers raise their guns, taking aim. They open fire at James as he runs. Bullets pierce the night air. James dives into the water, each stroke painfully conscious. As he swims toward an uncertain future, he reflects, "I turned 18 today. For the first time, I understand what it means to love, to feel pain, to be human." With that, James disappears into the darkness. leaving behind a trail of broken relationships, shattered trust, and finally, a flicker of emotion he'd spent his whole life chasing. And there you have it, the haunting, twisted, and ultimately redemptive story of James and Alyssa. If you found yourself on the edge of your seat, wondering if James would ever feel love, or if Alyssa could escape her demons, well, that's exactly the point. This film leaves us pondering what it means to be human. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to hit like. Share your thoughts in the comments. Did you see James's emotional awakening coming? And if you haven't already, subscribe and ring that bell for more raw and unfiltered movie recaps every week. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time on Movie Recaps Hub Podcast.